Mecca. I'm starting to fear. I get the heebie-jeebies whenever you're near. You throw off my equilibrium, baby. It's getting really hard to hear. Oh, weird Mecca. But don't worry, Mecca, there's gonna come a day, yeah, when all your tyranny, it's gonna go away. We'll take the sword out of Muhammad's hand, and then he ain't got nothing to say. Oh, pretty Mecca, maybe we'll have a church in Mecca. Oh yeah, baby, maybe we'll have a church back in Istanbul. We'll call it Constantinople again. Maybe the Dome of the Rock will be back in the hands of Israel. Woo! You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Mecca, you don't scare me. Baby doll. Your days are gonna close one of these days. Close for business. Mecca, close for business. Got to go now. You got to go now. I got to go now.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Welcome to the show, friend. We're continuing, bringing to an end our series on the Muslim Brotherhood. You will see that they are not a nice political organization that simply wants freedom. They are the vanguard for the institution of Sharia law in the Muslim world and the entire world, and they are committed to the enslavement of the Christian community. Just look at Egypt. But if you don't believe me, let's hear from a grandmother.
It's time now for Down Home with Granny Jihad.
Allah Takrapa! Children, more teaching from Muhammad. A man once came to Muhammad and said, "Instruct me as to such a deed as equals jihad in reward." He replied, "I do not find such a deed." In other words, jihad give greater reward than helping lady cross the street. So, leave old lady alone and go, run, get your sword.
Welcome to today's program, friend. We have been in a multi-part series on the Muslim Brotherhood, and we will likely finish it up tomorrow, all right? If you have not seen the entire series, I want you to go to our website, voiceofresistance.com, and you can watch them all. If we are going to ever be free in the world from the blight of Islam, we have to know what we're dealing with. Look at this picture. These are the swords of Muhammad. Now look at this one. These are the four swords of the first four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. They're swords. The swords that were used to murder people. The swords that were used to force millions of people to become Muslims. The swords that were used to cause Christians to renounce their faith under fear of death, or to enslave Christians, such as the Copts. Muhammad wrote a letter threatening the leader of the Copts. When we come back in the next section, I will read you that letter. The reason that this is so critical is if you were to go to the Vatican Museum, let's say, go to Rome, and look at the relics that are there. What do you see? When you see Christian relics, what do you see? Well, this is so-and-so who was martyred. This is their piece of clothing. This is the quill that they used to write. Here's where Jerome sat when he translated the Latin Vulgate. The relics of Christendom they're not swords. Look at what Islam centers on, what they revere. Swords, bloodshed, force, coercion, terror. That is at the heart and soul of Muhammad's life. The single most important book that you can read, right here. Okay? Get it online, or rather order it online. Go to a bookstore near you. The Life of Muhammad, a translation of Ibn Ishaq's Sirat Rasul Allah. This is written by Ibn Ishaq. All right? Ibn Ishaq lived a little more than 100 years after Muhammad's death. Ibn Ishaq was a renowned and beloved historian for the Muslim world. This is probably the most respected volume on the life of Muhammad that exists in the Muslim world, okay? He loved Muhammad. You get to read this book and you get to see modern terrorism exemplified in the life of Muhammad and his immediate followers. It's all right here. This is one of their sacred books. If you've got a lot of money, you see these books behind me? Al-Tabari. It's a 39-volume set on the life of Muhammad and the early generations of Islam. They revere these books, the Muslims do. They extol the decapitations, the murders. That is at the heart and soul of the life of Muhammad. And hence it's at the heart and soul of Islam. And the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood set out self-consciously to imitate the life of Muhammad and to build an organization that was committed to the restoration of the caliphate, all right, one leader over the Muslim world, and the implementation of Sharia law and the spread of Islam throughout the world. So we're going to continue looking at what options the U.S. government has when we come back from this break. But you need to understand the threat, the inherent threat that Islam is to the entire world. And if you want to see with your own eyes, go to Turkey. Just go to Turkey. Go to the places, go to Ephesus. Paul wrote to the Ephesians. Used to be a great Christian thriving community there. Many of the cities that are referenced in the book of Revelation, they're in Turkey. I've walked in the ruins, seen the decimated churches, complete ruins, churches in complete ruin that were destroyed by the Muslims. Christianity used to thrive there, and it's all but extinct because of the sword of Islam, because of the life of Muhammad. So you have to understand what we are facing. And remember the sufferings of our Christian brothers that are living under the iron fist and heel of Islamic Sharia law. I've got to take a break. I'll be back. We'll continue talking about the Muslim Brotherhood. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. Welcome back to the program. All right, the Obama administration has to have a policy regarding the Muslim Brotherhood because they're so big, all right? Elements of them are now in charge of a lot of government in Egypt, government in Libya. They're trying to get a hold of the government in Syria. And by the way, again, remember, it's not whether or not the organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, controls it. It's the ideology that matters, far more than the organizational structure. Okay? If you've got an organization that's strong, but you've got a willy-nilly ideology, it doesn't matter. If you're not even a part of an organization, but you've got an intense ideology, you're the two Boston bombers committing acts of terror in the name of Allah. All right. So when Leon Panetta was the CIA director, he told the Senate Intelligence Committee that it's clear within the Muslim Brotherhood there are extremist elements. It's difficult to label the organization as a whole. No, it's really not difficult. All right? Now, if Director Panetta is correct, then efforts should be made to reach out to those elements in the Muslim Brotherhood that are moderates. All right? But the problem is, what's a moderate? I remember a cartoon, Islamic extremist, gun going off. And the moderate was the same gun, empty, no more bullets. Click, click. He needs guns. He needs bullets. So he's coming to us. I'm a moderate now. So obviously, if it was possible to secure the help of anyone inside the Muslim Brotherhood to stop, say, the spread of weapons of mass destruction in the hands of terrorists, it'd be good if we could find people like that. But do they even exist? My fear is that the Obama administration is functioning on a false premise that we could find moderates. Now, sometimes you would have to have lines of communications open. I mean, if we're going to have any relationships and communication with Libya and Syria, or rather Egypt, we're going to have lines of communication, and that might help mitigate any crisis in which the U.S. citizens find themselves and could be protected. All right? It's possible. And as crazy as it sounds, the meetings have been held between the FBI and representatives of the Muslim Brotherhood to the end that, well, at least let's have lines of communications open so that if some of your people are captured in Egypt, maybe we can help facilitate their release so that they're not executed. I don't know. Others say, I concur, that reaching out to the Muslim Brotherhood in this fashion is short-sighted and self-defeating. All right? Rather than countering the ideology promoted by the Muslim Brotherhood and the terrorist groups that it has spawned, the U.S. has empowered the Muslim Brotherhood and, by extension, its uncompromising message by reaching out to the group itself in a poorly targeted effort to find allies in the Muslim world. Those are the words of Stephen Emerson, who we quoted yesterday. I mean, if you're reaching out to your enemy and giving them guns and they turn around and then end up killing you with them, doesn't that seem a little self-defeating and short-sighted? All right, here's something Emerson suggested when he testified to the Senate committee. He said, all organizations with ties to the Muslim Brotherhood need to be treated for what they are: fascistic, paternalistic organizations that seek the return of the caliphate, act as apologists for Islamism and terrorism, and are not prepared to be responsible actors in democratic systems. The Muslim Brotherhood movement should be considered a strategic enemy of the United States. It should be designated as a foreign power and a threat from a counterintelligence point of view to the national security of the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood has stated clearly that it considers the United States to be its enemy, despite claims by some commentators that there exists a moderate wing of the movement that somehow does not support the movement's core goals and ideology. All right, I need to take a break, right? All right, I'll be right back. We'll continue on with this theme of how do we treat the Muslim Brotherhood, friend or foe. Do we arm the people that say that we're their enemies and that they want to kill us? Sounds stupid to me. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. Welcome back, friend. We've been talking off camera, and we think that we'll go ahead and just finish up this series with this show and leave it to you to go ahead and, if you're interested at least, to keep doing research on the Muslim Brotherhood. But the way to do that, again, is to read their history, read their works, go to their website, read Sayyid Qutb, Hassan al-Banna, read the terrorist writings of their renowned theologians. All right. When Mubarak resigned, it brought a high level of interest, scrutiny, praise, accusations for the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, prior to his resignation, the discussion about the Muslim Brotherhood's connection to the avoidance of terrorism or the promotion of terrorism, who their heroes were, their polemicists, their structure, all of that, and the fountainhead relationship that they have to virtually every Islamic terrorist group in the world was primarily limited to academics. Okay, I have a master's degree in international terrorism and diplomacy, and it's a big deal in the scholastic world, but not in the media. All right, policymakers and analysts, terrorist specialists, inside and outside of government, they were focused on the Muslim Brotherhood. But a much larger portion of Americans knew nothing. And so now we're starting to get used to hearing their name. Now, many have shown that the Muslim Brotherhood is in fact the ideological and often relational predecessor, antecedent to Al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. All right? Though the charge angers the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood for obvious public relations and political reasons, it is a charge that they don't even deny, but they rather just kind of seek to quell it or to qualify it. For example, there was a recent article on the Muslim Brotherhood's official English website, okay? And the author, the unnamed author, was bristling. He said, all right, if you want to argue that the Muslim Brotherhood is an ideological predecessor to Al-Qaeda, you can't, fine. You can draw a line from Sayyid Qutb's writings to modern-day Salafi terrorist thought. But it's ridiculous to call the Brotherhood a gateway to Al-Qaeda. Well, no, it's not ridiculous. It's the point. When you can trace the line from Sayyid Qutb to Al-Qaeda, that's the point. And it's not that it's the gateway to Al-Qaeda, it's the gateway to terrorism. And ironically, the subtitle of that article was, "The Muslim Brotherhood Advocates the Imposition of Islamic State Using Political Means." In other words, yeah, we really are after the implementation of Sharia law in the whole world, but we're not a gateway to Al-Qaeda. Come on. Qutb wanted to use terror to get Islamic Sharia law in place. Now, these 2 points are critical, okay? First, number 1, without debate, scholars acknowledge that the Muslim Brotherhood champions like Hassan al-Banna and to probably a greater degree, Sayyid Qutb, are the ideological fountains of modern Islamic terrorism, okay? Names in the news, as well as in huge government terrorist files, such as Mohammed Faraj, who helped assassinate Sadat, and who wrote The Neglected Duty that I talked about in an earlier show. Ayman Zawahiri, the author of Knights Under the Banner of the Prophet, and the number 2 man in Al-Qaeda, okay? And Abu al-Zarqawi, the leader, former leader in Iraq, okay? These people are responsible for thousands of deaths, all right? Zedekiah, the last guy I just mentioned, was killed in 2006. He was responsible for thousands of deaths. They were all indoctrinated by the writings of Syed Qutb, the now dead chief theologian of the Muslim Brotherhood. All right? Second, I know I got to take a break, but I want to get this pointed. Second, the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood advocates the imposition of the Islamic State, that's a huge problem. All right? This imposition, by the words of al-Banna and Qutb and others, requires the political subjugation of all opposing views, okay? And the criminal prosecution, complete with flogging, imprisonment, execution of those citizens under Islamic law who try to practice freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, who say that Jesus is the Lord, Jesus is the Savior, and Muhammad is not the true prophet. You say those things under Sharia law, you're going to get imprisoned or executed. All right? I've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll finish up with this series on the Muslim Brotherhood. Don't go away. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. All right, friends, welcome back. This is our final segment in this series on the Muslim Brotherhood, and I'd like to close with a couple of thoughts for you. There are people who want to make a distinction between truly devout Muslims who will use force and terror and truly devout Muslims who won't. And there are reasons that we should discuss that. There's distinctions worth making. The simple one, of course, is that these people who are wanting Islamic Sharia law but don't want to kill you are prepared to use the democratic means to get there, all right? But you have to hear me. The end goal is the same. The imposition of a single Islamic state ruled by a caliph under Sharia law. So that being true, in some ways, it's simply a matter of discussing how, when, and where, and by whom the sword of Islam will be used for the imposition of Islamic law, of Sharia law. Do you get it? Whether it's people using the sword, and by the sword I mean violence, terror, the force of law, to implement Sharia law, or it's people using the democratic process to get to the place where the sword of Islam is in their hands. The end is the same. I mean, whether Sharia law comes through terrorism or democracy, human rights and freedoms as defined by the Judeo-Christian West and delineated in many treaties on fundamental human rights, all of those under Sharia law would be crushed. So we have to understand that Islam itself, the life of Muhammad, his example, Sharia law, they are the inherent threat, okay? In closing, one of the difficult things for me has been to come to the place where I actually had to view, and I suggest this of you, that you view a mosque as an outpost of an ideology and a legal system, and in some ways, a body politic, that you view a mosque as an outpost for an ideology that is committed to our enslavement and to the destruction of Christianity. That's what we're dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood. And really, that's what we're dealing with Islam itself. Hope you've enjoyed this series. Keep watching us. God bless you.
Thank you.